Ah, Henry VIII. A king who wasn't content with merely ruling a nation. He wanted to rewrite the rules of religion, politics, and, oh yes, marriage. This is the story of how one man's midlife crisis led to the dismantling of centuries-old religious authority. Spoiler alert, the Catholic Church didn't see it coming. Henry VIII had everything: wealth, power, and a wife, Catherine of Aragon, who came with a prestigious royal pedigree. But there was one thing he didn't have: a son. You see, in Henry's mind, a male heir wasn't just desirable, it was mandatory. A daughter, like Mary Tudor, simply wouldn't cut it. This was 16th century England, after all, and women on the throne. Unthinkable. We'll just ignore the later success of Elizabeth I for now. Enter Anne Boleyn, the charming, intelligent courtier who caught Henry's eye and convinced him that she could deliver the son he desperately wanted. There was just one problem. Henry was already married, but why let something as trivial as a lifelong sacred vow stand in the way of true love or royal convenience? In a move that surprised absolutely no one, Henry asked Pope Clement VII to annul his marriage to Catherine. Now, annulments were tricky business even in the best of times, and this wasn't the best of times. Catherine was the aunt of Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, who just so happened to have the Pope under his thumb. The Pope, wisely deciding that upsetting Charles wasn't worth it, said, "No, Henry, stay married."
Nope.
And thus began one of the most iconic tantrums in history. Henry, convinced he was right, as kings often are, decided that if the Pope wouldn't bend to his will, he'd simply remove the Pope from the equation. Logical, right? When Henry said, "Fine, I'll do it myself," he wasn't kidding. In 1534, he declared himself supreme head of the Church of England. Basically, Henry looked at centuries of religious tradition and said, "I can do better." He dissolved monasteries, seized church lands, and redirected all that wealth into royal coffers. Was it a move to establish religious reform, or just a clever way to fund his extravagant lifestyle and wars? Historians like to debate, but let's be honest, it's probably a bit of both. Of course, this wasn't all smooth sailing. Religious dissenters, like Thomas More, were executed for daring to question Henry's newfound role as God's chosen representative on earth. And while Henry claimed to be Catholic in faith, he wasn't exactly winning any Best Catholic of the Year awards. The irony of all this? Anne Boleyn, the woman Henry turned the world upside down for, didn't give him the son he longed for. Instead, she gave birth to Elizabeth, who would later become one of England's greatest monarchs.
You're joking. Not another one?
But Henry, blinded by his obsession with a male heir, had Anne executed on trumped-up charges. Romantic, isn't it? And let's not forget, Henry eventually had 6 wives in his quest for a son. Spoiler alert, his precious male heir, Edward VI, didn't even make it to adulthood. Meanwhile, the daughters he dismissed, Mary and Elizabeth, went on to shape England's future in ways he couldn't have imagined. Henry's break with Rome didn't just shake up his personal life, it plunged England into centuries of religious turmoil. Catholics versus Protestants, bloody executions and power struggles. It was like a never-ending soap opera, with Henry as the unwitting producer. But credit where it's due, his decision to separate from the Catholic Church laid the groundwork for England's eventual religious and political independence. Whether that was intentional or just a happy accident is up for debate. So, what do we make of Henry VIII's showdown with the Catholic Church? Was he a bold visionary or just a king who really wanted a divorce? Maybe both. And there you have it, folks. The next time you think your relationship drama is intense, just remember, at least you didn't have to start a new religion to solve it. Don't forget to support us by the subscribe and like, and
Also, share your thoughts in the comment.